Artificial intelligence has already made its presence known, and an even bigger boom could be on the horizon here. Goldman Sachs economists, they're predicting a potential 1.5% boost in productivity year over year for the next decade, along with a 400 basis point jolt to net margins. Let's bring back in Steve Sosnick, Interactive Brokers Chief Strategist. So a 1.5% boom every single year, I should say. So what even does that signal in terms of comparison to how companies are operating right now, where that productivity would be found, and perhaps what type of employment or roles are most at risk even within that too?
Well, that becomes the issue, right? I mean, if you're assuming the productivity is going to go up, at some point that implies the technology replaces labor. I understand why that would be the case, especially as labor becomes more scarce and more expensive.
And hopefully creates some jobs as well as, I mean, it's not just going to operate itself at the end of the day, I guess.
But it's another one of these things that we know is out there. A lot of the AI hype to me is, and I do call it hype to some extent, is very reminiscent of the late 90s when the internet was going to revolutionize everything. And by the way, it did. But how do there were winners, there were losers. It was very difficult to quantify. We're at that stage now. There was a stage in the 90s where, if a company said, oh, we're going to be starting a website, yay, and the stock would go up. And now that's, you can't do anything without having a website. The smallest of businesses have a professional looking website. I think that's where we are right now with AI, because it came up like in every company's conference call, regardless of whether they're really going to use AI or not. The question will be when we hear from NVIDIA, who is pretty much the master of invoking AI. I checked this. They invoked it 70 times during their last earnings call. Yeah. 32 times before the analysts started asking questions. I think it was 32. It was something like that. But they are leaning into this, and just as they've leaned into more or less every one of these big trends. We'll see if the hype has sort of hit a temporary peak as a result of that. But in terms of, I'm not going to dispute Goldman's numbers. I don't have anything to counter that, and I do think intuitively, yes, it better be productive, or else why are we wasting all this oxygen on it? But I'm not going to be dismissive of it.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Reed over at Deutsche Bank also out with the chart. He sends out a chart of the day, and the one today says history suggests AI will ultimately create, not destroy jobs. So there's a lot of thought leadership on this topic right now. I'm curious about something much more concrete, which is on your platform, what you're seeing in terms of flow of interest on AI. Obviously, we saw a huge surge early in the year. Has that been pretty sustained, or has it fallen off?
Well, some of the real high flyer type of names, like the stock AI, like the stock with the symbol AI.
C3.ai, yes. Right.
That was a huge name with us, and it sort of petered out because, again, I think that was sort of, that was sort of emblematic of 90s style internet, where they attach a name to it. But the ones that continually are sort of toward the top of our list in terms of activity are pretty much what you'd expect. I mean, NVIDIA is always, Tesla's always number one, by far. And we can say that's AI, why not? But, NVIDIA and AMD are usually numbers 2 and 3. Google has popped up a lot, Alphabet. The two Googles have popped up a lot in terms of interest. Microsoft is definitely was not always a top 10 name. It is now. But again, this shouldn't be a big surprise because these are the names that are leading the market anyway. So
it's hard to disentangle the AI factor versus the general big tech enthusiasm factor. Sometimes.
Absolutely. Although I will say that when Alphabet had its little late, Alphabet was originally perceived as the loser, the laggard to Microsoft, and now that Alphabet's playing catch up, which in 2020 hindsight was inevitable, right? Was Google just going to say, "Oh, sorry, that's it. We're going to let Bing run away with this"? That's totally when we saw activity pick up on the platform in Alphabet. So it's related, but it's hard to slice out exactly what's AI hype versus just general. These are the most active stocks.
Kind of just as a subset of that question, if there's anything emerging about where people are investing in AI pillars, if you will, where you've got your applications, you've got your models as well, and then you have the chips at the end of the day too, whereas where NVIDIA had played, where you were tracking all the mentions of AI on their conference call. Has anything emerged as to what part of AI or where within those pillars people are placing more of their investment thesis or strategy, I should say?
I would say right now they're sort of gravitating toward the big names, and those are the ones I mentioned. Those are the ones that are pushing, both the Nasdaq 100 and the broader and S&P 500 higher. And I think there is some, getting into more granularity into it. But I think we're still sort of at phase one, which is the beginning of the love affair, and then phase two will be a lot more of the let's get into the weeds and really find it out. I'm sure there are some stocks that are sort of bubbling under our most actively traded names that we're seeing people investing in, but I don't have the complete granularity into what everybody's doing in everything. It's that's a good thing for our customers, by the way, too. I can't cross the Chinese wall, too.
Right,
so.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Steve, stick around. Steve Sosnick, Interactive Brokers Chief Strategist, is going to stay with us.